The moment should have been pure triumph, gold medal gleaming, national anthem soaring. But instead, Amber Glenn stood at the eye of a cultural firestorm that would test whether being your authentic self is still allowed at the highest level of sport. Amber Glenn found herself positioned on the tallest platform in the world, a golden medal draped around her neck, when she discovered that for certain individuals, victory isn't sufficient. The Milano ice skating venue is typically a location of conventional beauty and courteous clapping. However, as the award presentation for the figure skating squad competition wrapped up, it became evident that Amber Glenn was positioned at the epicenter of a cultural tempest. As the initial openly LGBTQ woman to ever compete for the United States in singles skating at the Olympics, her triumphant instance was paired with what she characterized as a frightening volume of digital animosity. Before she ever arrived in Italy, Amber had discussed candidly about the demands confronting her community. She discussed human dignity, about compassion, and about the burden of competing for a nation in the midst of a profound cultural conversation. The reaction was swift and intense, a social media firestorm that would have shattered a weaker competitor. Yet as the national song performed, Amber Glenn didn't appear like somebody who was defeated. She appeared like somebody who had ultimately discovered her platform. Next to her stood Alysa Liu, the rebellious sensation who departed from the discipline at 16, only to come back on her personal conditions. United, they have transformed into the Blade Angels, a partnership that is reshaping what it signifies to be an Olympian in the modern era. This wasn't simply a triumph for a squad, it was a triumph for a particular form of resistance. To comprehend the atmosphere in Milan, you must grasp the connection between Amber, Alysa, and their colleague Isabel Levito. They refer to themselves as the Blade Angels. It rings like a promotional catchphrase, but in actuality, it is a coping mechanism. In a discipline that frequently positions young women in opposition to each other in a mental battle royale, the three chose to do something revolutionary. They chose to be companions. For generations, the perception of the American figure skater was established. The ice royalty, she was expected to be quiet, small, conventionally womanly, and politically impartial. She was a figurine in a musical container, anticipated to execute her rotations and then disappear into the shadows. This stereotype was not merely about appearance. It was a strict mental prison that compelled young women to hide their personalities in return for elevated scores from traditional adjudicators. Amber Glenn and Alysa Liu just demolished the container. Amber is the experienced one, the nearly champion who ultimately succeeded. A skater who performs with unfiltered strength and a triple axel that can match the men's division. Alysa is the unconventional symbol, the competitor with raccoon-striped locks and a smiley piercing who approaches the Olympics like a high-pressure weekend with her closest companions. By establishing the Blade Angels, they have built a kinship that values genuineness over appearance. They are openly encouraging and intensely defensive. When the hateful messages began flooding in, it was Alysa and Isabel who assisted Amber sort through the commotion. They have converted the changing area from a location of frigid competition into a command center for a fresh kind of Olympic uprising. This kinship is their psychological protection, a method to remind one another that they are competitors first and public objectives second. If Amber is the soul of this transformation, Alysa Liu is its essence of absolute unrestrained disorder. A few years back, Alysa Liu was the selected one. She was the youngest United States title holder in recorded time at 13. However, the strain of being the rescuer of American skating nearly ruined her. The world required she be a juvenile genius perpetually, but Alysa desired to be a human person. Following her initial Olympic involvement, she did the unimaginable. She walked away. She stepped back at 16, tossed her skates in the rear of a storage space, and went to discover who she was beyond a high-pressure ice venue. Her comeback to the discipline was the largest narrative in figure skating chronicle. However, she didn't return as the ice royalty she was previously. She returned as a nonconformist who declined to participate by the traditional regulations of professionalism. She is the competitor who chuckles when she tumbles, who creates playful expressions at the adjudicators when she loses an edge, and who declines to be anything besides a genuine 20-year-old. She has discussed candidly about her period away, about attending university, and about understanding that she didn't require skating to be content. She selected it. That selection altered the mechanics of her skating. She's the ideal companion for Amber because they possess a mutual adversary, expectation. In the squad competition, Alysa skated a routine that was technically outstanding but emotionally liberated. She wasn't battling the phantom of the genius she formerly was. She was accepting the woman she had evolved into. When she stood on that platform beside Amber, she wasn't merely a colleague. She was a testament to a fresh period where an athlete's character is equally a component of the execution as the leaps. Nevertheless, with that genuineness arrives a considerable target. In the electronic age, being yourself is frequently perceived as a challenge. Instantly following their golden medal victory, Amber Glenn became the subject of extreme examination. Detractors labeled her a disruption and implied her personal identity was eclipsing her athletic accomplishments. The digital terrain was ablaze with individuals analyzing her every statement and movement, searching for justifications to discredit her achievement. Amber's reaction was a demonstration in protection. She uploaded a TikTok with Alysa, both of them grasping their golden medals, and the straightforward underlying communication was "remain angry." She wasn't being political for the purpose of an objective. She was protecting her privilege to be satisfied with her path. It was a barrier against the commotion, a method of expressing that the perspectives of unknown people on the internet didn't carry as much significance as the gold surrounding her neck. But how did she sustain concentration through the commotion? Amber has discussed about her ADHD as a hidden advantage. While others perceive it as a disruption, she labels it intense concentration. When she enters onto the ice, the disorder of the internet vanishes. The psychological protection she constructed throughout years of being the nearly champion ultimately strengthened. Amber stated she had never experienced so many individuals desire her failure before simply for being herself. The circumstances became so unstable that she ultimately went completely quiet on social media to safeguard her psychological condition for the individual championships. She understood that to succeed on the ice, she had to succeed the battle inside her personal mind first. This is the actuality of the contemporary Olympics. The battlefields are not merely on the ice. They are in the commentary area. As if the social media conflict wasn't sufficient, Amber encountered a procedural obstacle that almost eclipsed her triumph. A notification that the traditional establishment of the discipline is constantly observing. During the squad competition, Amber skated to a haunting composition titled "The Return" by musician Seb McKinnon. Almost instantly after her execution broadcast, a public disagreement emerged concerning the musical permissions on a worldwide Olympic platform. In a discipline where every note is examined, this wasn't merely a legal matter. It was an emotional one. The musical permissions dispute in figure skating is famously intricate, typically involving multiple levels of administration that competitors never witness. But for Amber, it seemed like one additional interruption engineered to drag her attention away from the ice. It was another effort by fate to declare, "You don't fit here on your personal conditions." But observe the triple axel she executed. It is a leap of absolute force. Most women's performances concentrate on movement and gentleness. Amber's performance is about assault. She approaches her leaps with a speed that reflects the men's division. The musical debate was ultimately settled, and it demonstrated that Amber Glenn is a competitor who battles for her privilege to utilize her personal voice and her personal music. She declined to modify her performance, and she declined to express regret for the selections that guided her to the gold. She demonstrated that her creativity belongs to her and nobody else. This determination in the presence of administrative disorder only contributed to her nonconformist reputation. Then there was the instance that became the ultimate symbol for these competitions. The medals began fracturing. Just hours following the presentation, Alysa Liu uploaded a clip displaying her golden medal, the tangible representation of her life's effort, completely separated from its cord. It had severed during the post-victory commemoration. It was a startling procedural malfunction for a competition as distinguished as the Olympics. But for Alysa and Amber, it was an instance of absolute humor. Coordinators were distressed, guaranteeing to substitute the defective medals. But Alysa's response was absolute defiance. She informed companions she preferred it fractured. She perceived the dented, separated medal as a mirror of her personal path. It wasn't flawless, it wasn't conventional, and it definitely wasn't what individuals anticipated a golden medal to resemble. It was a golden medal that had endured a struggle, similar to the competitors who earned it. The visual of Amber and Alysa grasping their scratched and fractured golden medals is the characteristic visual of the competitions. It signifies a generation that doesn't prioritize the refinement of history. They prioritize the reality of now. The conventional structures are fracturing. The ice royalty storyline is fracturing, and in its position is a squad of blade angels who are flourishing in the debris. They are demonstrating to the world that you can be wounded, flawed, or non-traditional and still be a victor. The marks on the medal make the gold seem more deserved. Achievement for Amber Glenn and Alysa Liu isn't merely about a golden medal. It's about control. It's about the reality that they have compelled the world of figure skating to observe them directly and embrace them as they exist. They demonstrated to us that a golden medal doesn't have to be publicity approved to be legitimate. They demonstrated to us that you can be unmanageable or unconventional and still be the finest in the world. Amber Glenn is advancing into the individual championships as a contender. She is no longer the nearly champion. She is the golden champion. And whether the detractors approve or not, she is the fresh representation of American skating. She has substituted the quietness of history with a declaration that is being perceived around the world. They are not merely skating for the rankings anymore. They are skating for every young person who is informed they were excessive or insufficient. They are skating for the misfits. The ice royalty is gone. The nonconformist monarch has emerged. And for the initial time in an extended period, the gold belongs to the individuals who are not frightened to be genuine. The world is observing. The individual championship is approaching. And the blade angels are prepared to soar.